I'm not going to take too long here, just a couple of minutes up front. We recorded a webinar last week, which is accessible through our website, where I went through a lot of the details about the challenge and how it works and content, etc. Please review that, look at that. If you have any questions, reach out. There's an email address at the end of the on the last slide, but there's a lot more detail in there that we're not going to be repeating here today. We have an informational webinar today with Jessica Swinney. She's worked for 13 years as the Wise County Emergency Management Coordinator. In her current position, Jessica has worked for the County of Wise since 1997, holding several positions in the Wise County Circuit Court Clerk's Office, and since 2004 as the Geographic Information Officer. Jessica's professional credentials include an MA in Organizational Management and BS in Computer and Information Sciences and a GIS certificate. So she's very involved in the emergency management and the GIS aspects in her region. She also is a member of the Virginia Emergency Management Association, the National Emergency Number Association, and the Association for Public Safety Communication Officers, and she is a certified GIS professional. So that's today's informational webinar. As you'll see here, just a note about that. Next week, we will be having Debbie Milton going to be talking about the flood events at Hurley and Whitewood. They were actual events in 2021 and 22 that caused an awful lot of damage, and there was one death and a fair amount of damage, and some homes were very heavily damaged. And on the 25th, we'll have Francis Bouchard, who is an expert in insurance, talking about some of the insurance aspects of what we're looking for. May 6th is when our application submission deadline is complete. We need your submissions online at that point, and we will be working very quickly to announce the finalists on May 10th. We're on a very accelerated schedule here. We have to have the funds and the companies selected and under contract by the end of June. That's why things are moving along quickly. May 20th will be the deadline to submit additional documentation to those companies that are invited to submit, and then they will go on to pitch, and we will announce the winners in late June. Just a couple of background slides here, which were also discussed last week. This is the FEMA map of riverine flooding. This is the Commonwealth of Virginia, and this is the region we're talking about here. So we can see that riverine flooding is a problem in some shape or form all across the country. And our idea is focus in on the region of Southwest Virginia that is definitely affected, but following on from that, there's a market for these solutions and applications that will be developed. The area we're most interested in here is these four Planning District Commission regions, 1, 2, 3, 4. Jessica's region is Linnewisco in 1, and they're way out to the. I was informed that this is the first region in Virginia out to the west here. And they have flooding issues there, she will be talking about. But we are looking to cover in our solutions this region of these 4 PDCs. And there's no real reason to stop there. We know that Vermont got hit very hard just about a year ago with riverine flooding. And so we want the solutions that are developed to be scalable and applicable to other regions. This is the slide that I presented that presents shows the illustration in Buchanan County in Virginia. This is what happened in Hurley in Buchanan County. This is a weather map of the weather just prior to the event, where there's some very, very localized cells of heavy rain. Here in Hurley got caught in the middle of it in some very strong flash flooding. And Pilgrim's Knob in 2022 down here was similarly affected. So this is happening more often, and it's causing a fair amount of devastation to these communities. Just a mention about the 3 topic areas that we're looking for. The informational webinars will apply to all 3 of them. We were going to split them up into topic area 1 per week, but it made more sense to talk about the issues at hand that spread across the topic, all 3 topic areas. The first challenge topic area is flood resilient, affordable landscape and building adaptations to protect against high and swift water. Second one is an early warning system to alert of significant events and provide avoidance guidance. That we'll be talking a lot about that here this afternoon. And then the third one is to scope, structure an insurance program that can meet the needs of the residents and the communities, as well as a support and management infrastructure to execute these programs. So that's also obviously of interest to the discussion here today. So these slides are all on our website, along with a much longer presentation. I'm going to stop sharing here, and we're going to start to talk with Jennifer. I've got a few questions, but what I'd like to do is to I'll start the discussion with her, and if anyone has questions, please raise your hand. Paige will be looking for the electronic hand raise, and we welcome a discussion. Ask your questions and ask for clarifications. The purpose of this discussion here is to help you on the call understand the current limitations of flooding event awareness and warning capabilities available to EMS, and where the biggest changes are needed. So I'll start just by setting the stage here and ask Jessica to describe briefly what happens before and after a storm when you're expecting some very heavy rain, some potential flash flooding. What happens in your division, in your group? What are you looking at? What are you preparing? And is there a recent event of late that you can relate to us?
Thanks, Paul. So before we have, or when we're having an event, or we're looking that potentially there's an event, we are in contact with the National Weather Service. We get products from the forecast from the National Weather Service, normally days before an event occurs. So we will take a look at their forecasts and start preparing resources, start preparing equipment, check-in equipment, maintenance equipment, making sure that we have what is needed for the event. We also will monitor not just National Weather Service forecasts. Typically, sometimes National Weather or mostly National Weather Service forecasts, and then our local forecasting offices will be a little bit different on their forecasts. So typically that's what we're doing before an event.
And Jessica, are you able to, because the terrain is so mountainous there, are you able to pinpoint, or how well are you able to pinpoint which towns and villages are going to be affected, or does it just blanket the region?
Well, that's a very good question, because Wise County does have different geographic locations. We are in the very rural, mountainous southwest, and we have elevations from around 1,300 feet all the way up to about 4,400 feet. So flash flooding, of course, is a concern for our region. But forecasting forecasting for the rain totals or rain amounts, is very broad or very generic. So it is hard to kind of determine if we are under if a flash flood watch is issued, it will be for our entire county, which is 404 square miles, and knowing exactly where those 5 or 6 inches of rain is going to fall, obviously, is hard to pinpoint exactly where those bands are going to fall.
Yeah. Yep. So, obviously as time goes on and you start to get towards the rain events, because these are pretty much all pluvial rain induced events, I'm assuming. And as you see where the rain is and how heavy it is, are you able to communicate with all these communities to, as you start to see where the event's going to unfold and who are going to be affected? Are you able to communicate in your region?
What during these events, we are looking at emergency management is looking to the dispatch or the 911 center for their information. So we are also in contact with our local fire departments. A lot of our fire departments are still kind of a quasi-volunteer type agencies. They're not all career paid departments. So communication sometimes is difficult because they're the boots on the ground, and typically we're not getting reports until the event is occurring. So when flooding starts happening or the roadway starts getting flooded, then those 911 calls will come into dispatch. 911, I can monitor that either on the radio or on the CAD system, and then we can send out, or dispatch will start sending out those boots on the ground, so to speak, of the fire departments. And then I'll start getting the reports of where the water is or where the flooding is occurring. And really, we have some flood gauges, but that's typically not really helpful for us. I mean, it's by the time the flood gauges are showing flooding, it's really too late. The calls are coming in before the flood gauges are showing the information. So, and we have very few flood gauges in the county anyway.
And are the calls coming in from landlines or cell? Because I know cell coverage, because of the mountainous region, it can be limited in some spots. How are the 911 calls coming in?
Well, typically it is probably 80% are cell phones. So typically most of the calls are coming in from cell phones. We do still have some coverage gaps in our county that we do not have cell coverage, but typically the majority is cell phone calls coming in.
Yeah. So at this point, I'd want to point out to you, and I think I'm going to put a link in the chat here, because when I was talking to Jessica, she directed me towards the Wise County Emergency Operations Plan, which is available on the web. I'll put the link in the chat. It's a very detailed document, and I would imagine it's a typical type of document that any solutions to this challenge, to the early warning challenge topic area, you're going to have to deal with what's already in place as far as the operations plan exists, and so you don't want to scrap that and start from scratch. I think that would be very burdensome, but you need to know where you're starting from and what can be built on. So I will put that in there. So Mark asked, does WISE have any automated rain gauges?
Yes, there are. The state VDM, just the flood intel unit, just added a couple of, or 4 rain gauges in Wise County. 2 are operational. I literally just got that data yesterday. 2 are not. And then we have some USGS flood gauges in the Pound, the northern portion of the county. And I think we have, that I misspoke. That's Army Corps of Engineers that is in the northern portion of the county. And then we have a couple of USGS gauges as well. So we do have between 6 to 10 gauges, I think, throughout the county. There's one or so per community. We have
Okay.
6 different communities in Wise County. We have 6 townships, and we actually in Wise County have a city right in the middle of Wise County, an independent city of Norton as well in our county. So there's 6 different governing bodies within Wise County, but I am the county or the emergency manager for all those towns.
Okay, so we've sort of painted the picture of where you are right now, and I've put the link in the chat to your current existing plan. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about where you see the biggest need for improvements? Is it better forecasting, better weather observation, better communication, or what do you see as really the things where one of these things is unfolding? You think, well, I wish we had ... Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay. So when things are unfolding, the National Weather Service that serves our county is out of Morristown, Tennessee. We are in the far southwest Virginia, so our county borders Kentucky. So our county borders Kentucky, and then the state borders Tennessee and North Carolina. So our forecasting office actually forecasts from Chattanooga, Tennessee, all the way to the next county over in Virginia, Russell County. And so it's a very vast and different area that they are forecasting. So typically forecasting in the mountainous terrain of Wise County is a little difficult at times. So getting a more detailed forecast of where those rain events, those heavy rains are going to occur, obviously would be more helpful. And then something else that Paul and I talked about the other day was we talked about the flood products that the National Weather Service generates, and one of the things that we talked about was flood impact statements, and that is when certain flooding events or when rain events occur, when certain amounts of rainfall occurs, those flood impact statements will give the residents information as to where the flooding will occur, like what roadways will flood or what campgrounds will flood. We actually had a campground flooded back in 2022 when Kentucky had those devastating floods in July. We thankfully or luckily we did not experience it. That rain diminished as it came into Wise County. We only had about 6 inches of rain instead of 10 like Kentucky received. But there was a campground that was flooded during that time, and there was really kind of no warning. The EOC did not know. Sheriff's office knew when it was occurring. Sheriff's office had to help evacuation of some of those campers, and unfortunately those campers lost some personal property. Thankfully there was no injuries, but if impact statements had that data on it and could be delivered to emergency management, that would definitely be very helpful.
And just some of you folks, if you've been reading the application guideline document, you may see that there are data sets. There's 1 meter resolution LiDAR topography maps available for Southwest Virginia, actually for the whole state. When I asked Jessica about it, she didn't believe that those maps are being used as part of the overall forecast model. So that's just one observation here, that there's some pretty good topography maps that could be used to help identify and pinpoint which communities are going to be affected by rainfall. Jessica, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? What about communication, and what about guidance to the communities in terms of warning?
So in Wise County, we use Code Red warning system or notification. It's a community notification system, and it does help to get the information out to the resident, but that is only an opt-in type of system. So the resident does have to opt in to and sign up for the warnings. And it works with the National Weather Service warnings, and it will call the resident, and it is based on location. So if a severe thunderstorm warning is issued, if one of those watch boxes or warning boxes is over their address, it will give them a phone call, a text, or an email, and let them know that there is a flood warning occurring. However, the impact statements, I think, are not included in that, and that would be helpful if those impact statements could also be relayed to the residents as well.
Okay, are there any questions from any of the attendees that you want to ask at this point? Feel free. Question for you, Jessica. How much lead time would the EMS need before flood impacts occur? Would 6 hours be enough, or is more time needed to mobilize resources, like 24 hours?
I think 6 hours would be enough.
Yeah, and I think with these convective events, I think it's hard to really get much accuracy,
Right.
much further ahead in time. And by the way, for all the people, the folks on the call here, if we do make reference to some information sources and reports in all the different topic areas, if you're having trouble getting access to them, let us know. Sometimes the links don't work, or the websites are down or whatever. But if you're looking for an information source, just let us know. Are there any other questions from the attendees out there? So I'd ask you, Jessica, just in sort of in our final few minutes here, is there any one thing, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you like? Would you like better communications, or better forecast, or would you different ways of reaching to these communities? Maybe, you know, there are autonomous drones out there. Has that been considered, or what are you thinking about in the future?
Well, I'm going to throw a topic out there that you haven't mentioned, but it is part of the scope, is on the recovery side for residents to recover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, typically what I have found over the years in rural Southwest is that we don't typically get FEMA declarations. So, you know, getting those recovery funds to those residents quickly, that's kind of been something that I really would like to see happen.
So that's such a great point, and we make that point in our in the insurance topic area, where we really need for people to understand what the residents need and when. Before the event, there's only so much you can do, but afterwards, in an hour, in the hours after the event, they're going to need food and shelter and somewhere to stay if their home's been demolished. They may need some money. There are needs, some immediate needs after one of these events. So I think that's a very good point, and we do want to develop our applicants to develop an understanding of really what is needed there. This is an early warning area topic that we've been discussing up until this point, but the needs after the fact are very important for the recovery effort, and in particular on the insurance side too. Are there any questions from any of the attendees? Okay. Well, Jessica, I want to thank you for your time and your knowledge and your guidance here. I hope you'll stay in touch with us as we go through the program here, and we start to pick companies to develop their solutions. We want to recognize your inputs, and they've been very helpful. Certainly, they help guide us to get the relevant solutions to the problems here. So, Jessica, on behalf of RISE, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. And if anyone has questions after the fact for Jessica, send them to us to info@riseresilience.org, or to me, Paul Robinson, at riseresilience.org, or Paige, and we will funnel them to Jessica just to make sure that we don't overburden her with emails. We'll package them together and send them on to her. So we're happy to do that. Just let us know if you have any questions that come up afterwards. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. We're right on time finishing up. Next week we'll have Debbie Milton and Kevin Kokersberger to talk about the Hurley event, and hopefully you can join us for that. Thank you.